From our studio in Roseville, Minnesota, CTV North Suburbs proudly presents an interview with British composer, conductor, and producer Robert Collinson, with your host, Dr. Glenn Newton.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here in the studio with composer Robert Collinson, who is here in Minnesota for the world premiere of one of his musical compositions. Rob, can you tell us something about the composition that will have its world premiere this week?
Sure, I can. The music itself is a commission by the Shell Theatre Band as part of their 20th anniversary celebrations. It's got a kind of a narrative to it. I'm hoping the audience are going to enjoy it. The band tell me in rehearsal they've been enjoying playing it. I'm looking forward to hearing it properly.
So how does it start?
It's quite idyllic at the beginning. The narrative is the awakening, perhaps, of the little town of the town of Red Wing. There's then a more active part where perhaps the town's going to work, or the players are getting ready for this parade that there's supposed to be at the end of it. Something a little bit more reflective after that. And then the parade itself. Now, in the parade itself, it's a little bit awkward for the players because apparently the librarian has given them the wrong music. They're all trying to play different marches simultaneously. At some point in that, the musical director, or referee as we like to call him, blows a whistle, it stops, and then it carries on with the march all playing the right thing.
But let's show people some of your sketch notes that you used when you were composing this.
Yeah, sure. Right. These are usually never seen by anybody except myself. They really are sort of scroll on the page, but they mean quite a bit to me. If you look here, you'll see the sections that I just outlined. So you've got the chorale, as I've called it. This little section here is that. It's a 4-phrase section, and it's just a little tune, and it's supposed to represent Barn Bluff. In my mind, it does anyway.
That's one of the landmarks in Red Wing.
That's right. My research showed me that this is a big thing there. There were other things as well, but I decided to give it a theme because it's there for everything. It's the backdrop of the whole thing. So I used that chorale to begin with. I then say there's a quicker section. I've put up there the tempo that I think it needs to go. The reflection is the chorale again. Then we've got the street parade, and when I go through the thinking about doing these things, I jot things down and then decide on what I'm going to do. So this 6/8 has a kind of a jaunty feel to it. The 2/4 doesn't. It's a straight up and down march. So I decided the street parade would need the 6/8 feel to it, the jauntiness. Also over here, these here, those are quotes that I use to make the parade sound authentic. I've used real marches. They're not just things one is actually things I've made up. S and SF is Stars and Stripes Forever, which the audience I hope will know. The second one is the Minnesota March, which maybe some of the audience doesn't know. And the third one is a march that I wrote for the band a couple of years ago called Red Wing, Minnesota.
So it's sort of like starting with a high camera view and then focusing down closer and closer to
That's right,
Redwood.
that's right. It comes in from, they each represent something. So Stars and Stripes is zoom in. The Stars and Stripes represents the states as a whole, Minnesota the state, and then of course Red Wing itself. There were some things that didn't get into there. There was another march for Shea. I decided it was just going to be too much to include that. And funnily enough, I decided to do the Doppler effect, you know, when a fire engine goes past.
And it goes
like that.
Yeah.
I was going to want to do that, but I thought it may just be a little bit much and the audience perhaps wouldn't know what was going on. Because the brief is that it needs to be, well, my personal brief is it needs to be audience friendly. Now, the point is that the whole of the music up to this point, where things start going wrong, the band are playing perfectly, we hope. right? The band are playing perfectly, and the audience get no sense that this is coming. So I'm hoping there aren't going to be people leaving the theatre when they hear it. But the reason I've done that is because I have great faith in this particular band, the Sheldon Theatre Band. So although I've written breakdown there, I've put beside it in the early stages, risky.
And that's because it could be risky if the band played like that normally.
They don't. I'll tell you, they don't. But yes, if I put something in that's deliberately supposed to sound wrong, it's kind of a compliment in that doesn't usually happen with this particular band, and it doesn't, because I know this band. So I don't want to put the audience in an embarrassing situation of thinking it's all gone horribly wrong. It needs to be controlled, even though it's chaos. It needs to be controlled so that the audience is still comfortable and they know that there's going to be a kind of a happy ending to it.
Well, now we've got a video clip of this controlled chaos from Monday night's rehearsal. Let's take a look at that. And there we heard the referee's whistle ending it and getting us on to the right track.
That's right, yes. Further things. I did say right at the top it was a 4-phrase. That's the first phrase. Second phrase ends at that line. Third phrase. And I decided, although there is a fourth phrase to it, I decided it would be a little bit too closed off to do that. So what happens is, as this appears throughout the whole piece, something else, some other episode happens. So rather than play the fourth phrase, I decided deliberately right at the very early stages not to have it. So there is one, but you'll never hear it.
Well, now let's watch a video from our holiday concert where the band did play an entire composition of yours.
Right.
Now, what's the name of this?
This is Christmas March Medley, and it's an amalgam of various Christmas carols. Usually in Britain at Christmas time we have bands that stand on street corners or in malls, shopping centres and things like that, and either collect for charity or for themselves, because some bands in our country are registered charities, just to help support them, to keep the good works that they do going. And we found a couple of years ago that we ended up playing just one-line carols and playing maybe 3 or 4 verses of it, and then turning it over and then playing another 3 or 4 verses of another one, or things like that. And I borrowed an idea from the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army are sort of very big, the brass bands are certainly in our country, and they have obviously great writers that write Christmas-type marches, and this is kind of either a tongue-in-cheek effort at trying to do that.
Playing it was a lot more fun than just playing carols.
Well, yes, it's a little bit more interesting perhaps. You get a quick fix of 3 or 4 carols, and sometimes that's all you need. A quick fix of 3 or 4 carols in about 3 minutes worth of music.
Now, typically on a street corner you wouldn't have an entire brass band though, would you?
No, so this particular arrangement is constructed so that it would work for 10 people upwards. So you've got a limited instrumentation just in case you can't get everybody there. I mean, the Sheldon Theatre Band are playing it, and it's a full band arrangement. What I've done is I've made the 10-piece arrangement work, and then, not cleverly I suppose, but made it so that the extra parts can be added in without you knowing that it's actually 10 that's been expanded.
And from looking at the trombone and baritone parts, I can see that there are some alternate notes to be played if you have the full band.
That's right. The trick is to score it so that it's not overscored. You don't want too many people on the same part. So at the point you've just described, I decided that the baritone instruments and the trombone instruments, who share a part, instead of playing the same thing, the baritone should help out the euphonium part, but only if you've got both sets of instruments.
Yes. Now, is this brass band we're looking at the typical instrumentation that you would find in a British one as well?
It is. In fact, when I first learned of the Sheldon Theatre Band, I was very surprised to know that here in the States you have what we consider our format of brass bands. So it's cornets, tenor horns, baritones, trombones, flugelhorn, basses.
No French horns, no trumpets?
No, nothing like that. No, we don't have anything like that. No, nothing like that at all.
Well, now, tell us how you first got started as a composer.
Well, I started actually as a player. That's what got me into. You've got to find a way into music. And as a player, I was a cornetist. And I originally played with a band called Eshwin and Colliery Band, because a lot of bands in our country are either colliery bands or mill bands or sponsored by some other kind of company. And that was the first band, but I wasn't there very long. It got me started, and then I found there was a band a little bit closer to home. It involved quite a bit of travelling, and I ended up at the Branspeth Welfare Band, and I ended up being principal cornet with this band.
No kidding. Now, how old were you then?
I would have been about 13, 14 when I first joined them. Oh, there.
Oh, and there you are.
There we are. This is me. This is me here with that lovely haircut.
That's you.
Yeah.
And I see that there's quite a range of ages. Is that typical in the...
It's typical with this kind of band. This is a lower section band. Bands are in kind of divisions. This was a third section band, and you generally find they're almost training bands for youngsters. For example, that's my brother. They're playing in the same band. You find that they learn how to play, and then as you go slightly further up the food chain, as it were, where you have the really top flight bands, you don't find many youngsters in there. You find young people, but not youngsters beginning out.
Now here in Minnesota, if you wanted to move from one band to another, you'd be talking about a traveling distance of over 50 miles. What was it like where you grew up?
Well, where I am and where I now live, which is Yorkshire, let's say a 30-mile radius, you've got maybe 20, 25 bands in that space.
That's amazing. And some of those are pretty darn good bands, aren't they?
Very good. Where I live, we're kind of we're in two triangles. We're in a banding triangle, which is some of your viewers may have heard of the Black Dyke Mills Band, the Grimethorpe Band. If anybody's ever watched the film Brassed Off,
they were the band in that.
They were the band in that. Grimley Colliery was Grimethorpe. Bit of a play there, and the Brighouse and Rastrick Band, which your listeners, viewers may know as the band that played the Floral Dance a few years ago. It was a pop tune. They were very successful with it. So they are the really, really big names, and they are within 10 miles, 12 miles of where I live, in all directions.
That's quite a hotbed of brass banding.
Yes, definitely.
Now, are there other places like that in Great Britain?
Yes, that's Yorkshire, which is considered to be the kingdom of brass bands. Where I'm originally from, which is the northeast of England, it's about the same. We have them in Scotland and Wales. Anywhere where there were mines and industry and anything like that, you would find there were works bands. The northwest of England has equal sort of big names as well.
Interesting. Now, at some point, I know you had your own brass quintet.
I did, yes. I went from the playing with a brass band, and with some. I was fairly young then. Oh, we can see, right? I was fairly young. There are one or two sort of kindred spirits, I think, and we decided that we would play for weddings and things like that.
It's not the typical United States brass quintet in instrumentation.
No, it's a brass band brass quintet. So we have two cornets as opposed to trombones, a euphonium, which isn't a trombone, trumpet and trombone, an E-flat bass, tuba, that's nearly about the same, and a tenor horn again, no French horns.
Playing what the French horn would play in one of our American
Close enough, yeah.
brass
Close
quintets.
Enough, yeah.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about the educational system?
Well, in Britain, you study up to, I think it's about 13, a general sort of course, a core of subjects, and then you take options. So one of my options was music, to learn for a couple of years and take an O-level examination at 16. So I did an O-level in music. I then followed that up with an advanced level in music, and then went to college after that.
So about what age were you when you went to college?
I was 19. I took a year off. I left school at 18, took a year off, worked for my father, and did other things, and then went to the University of Hull, which is on the east coast of England, still in the north, and studied music there.
And you were on a scholarship, weren't you?
I was fortunate enough to get there quite easily. I had been successful in a composition competition to write a wind octet, so nothing to do with brass bands at all, and they did have French horns. I was successful. I was 17 at the time, and I wrote this piece and was given a special commendation. It was a national competition, given a special commendation, and one of the judges was the, as they call it, the reader in composition at Hull University. So in other words, he was looking for a student to take under his wing, I suppose, and teach for the 3 years I was at Hull. So I was very successful at getting there.
Yes.
And the chap that taught me at least orchestration and things was a chap called Tony Hedges, which is a light music composer.
Now, besides the wind octet and brass band music, do you do other arranging and composing?
I have done. Currently, the sort of music I'm asked for is brass band. In this kind of business, you write something and somebody else hears it, so another brass band wants something. So you do that, and then another brass band tends to want something. But I mean, I have written string quartets, wind band music, swing band music, just about anything really.
And then at some point along the line, you started directing.
Yes. At quite an early age, I ended up conducting. This isn't the first band I conducted. But is
that you in the middle there?
That is me with a gorgeous red jacket, and this is my partner Christina. In playing euphonium in the same band. I was at this particular band for 8 or 9 years. This is a third section band, so a little bit one up from the original Bransmouth band, but conducting them and eventually taking them to the national finals.
And I believe we have some pictures of this band at the national finals.
I think so. Yep, that's me. We're actually at the national finals in Preston, which is in the northwest of England.
You look quite intense there.
Yeah, I think that's a bit deceiving. I'm usually quite laid back when I'm playing. I think the photographer just caught me at a bad moment there.
Now, we've got another picture where you look like one of the men in black.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, this is an unfortunate picture. This is what bands usually do. We have, well, we're not playing in contests. We give concerts outside. We're involved in fêtes, parades, things like that. And this was one of those. This was a band called Langbar Band from the northeast of England, and this is just a typical village sort of fête. This is the same band at a competition where we play a short program and we're adjudicated on it.
Now, besides the formal competitions and the outdoor concerts, where else do bands play?
You can find bands just about everywhere. This is a good example. We're actually playing in a gymnasium there. Now, funnily enough, this is a competition, but an indoor one where every band plays exactly the same piece to the best standard they can, and then somebody makes a judgment. This is actually a picture taken of me conducting the Langbar Band in Darlington, which is in the northeast of England, and this is to get to the final that you saw me with the other band, where I've got the red jacket on.
So this is more like a regional?
Yes, this is a regional competition.
Now, in addition to conducting and composing, there's a third major musical aspect that you've been involved in. Let's talk a little bit about that one.
There is. I was very fortunate to, that's me again. I was very fortunate to be writing for one of our top bands, a band called the Leyland Band in Britain. And I was arranger in residence, as they say, or associate arranger. So I had the job of putting music together for them. And I was invited to a recording session and met up with the chap that was who had the recording company, and he decided he would have me as part of his production team. The chap I'm talking about there is the chap on the left there with the dark shirt. It's Keith Johnson, and he runs KMJ Recordings.
Okay, that's his initials?
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, Keith Michael Johnson, I think it is.
And there we can see the plethora of microphones that you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing is that I've come full circle. This band that is there now, I actually played tuba for this band now.
Yeah, that is interesting. So,
Yeah.
in this next picture, we can see you and Keith working with the musical director on a recording session.
Yes, we were invited down to a band in the Midlands, Birmingham in Britain, to make a Christmas CD. And there you can see myself, Keith with the kind of check shirt on, and the guy in the middle who's the musical director. This is a fourth section band.
It doesn't look like it's Christmas.
It's not. It was June, I think it was, when we were doing this, and we're doing it in a local school hall. It's basically a standard setup for us, and it's just an interesting project that we did this summer.
Now, by the time you get there, have they already decided on the repertoire?
They have. They actually, this band, as a link to me, they actually played Christmas March Melody on this CD. So they already have their repertoire worked out before we arrive there. We usually ask them to choose a little bit more repertoire than is physically possible to record, so that over the 2 days, because we record these things over a weekend usually, over the 2 days, if we begin running out of time, there are various items that could be dropped. So they have a list of items which are absolute definites, and another secondary list of things that would be nice to have on, but if there isn't enough time, can be dropped.
Can you give us an idea of what a typical recording day would be with a band like this?
With this particular band, I'll just mention this particular band. We arrive quite early. Sometimes we set up, because obviously you can see there's a lot of equipment. We set up the evening before, stay over, and then start the morning quite early the following morning. We're there for about 8 o'clock in the morning, making sure everything's working. The band would usually arrive maybe 9 o'clock, something like that, and begin to warm up. Whilst they're doing the warm up, we would do a sound check, just to make sure that everything's working as it should be, and then we click the red light on to record the first track, maybe 9:30 or 9:45, something like that, and maybe work through all the way till 4 o'clock.
Now, do you have a musical score so that you have an idea of whether what they're doing is what they're supposed to do?
We have, yeah, well, exactly. We have three. We ask bands to supply us with three. There's usually three on the production team that need scores, because we're all reasonably fluent score readers. Keith himself, the guy with the check shirt, is an ex-euphonium player, so he can understand things like that. I mean, he's the engineer, but he's a musician as well. There's Gareth Pritchard, who isn't on that photograph, who is the executive producer. He's a publisher, and he obviously understands score reading. And then, of course, there's me, that I kind of struggle by being able to do it.
And then how do you decide whether you need to retake something?
We would generally go through the score, listening whilst the performance is going on, and we would mark up, either with pencil or highlighter pens, things that we've found that we think are wrong, or little imperfections, or big imperfections sometimes. Mm-hmm. We then compare scores after the take's finished, and if all three of us have surrounded the same thing, then there's a very good chance we need to retake that bit. If two of us have done it, we would discuss it. If one of us had done it, it may be just something that isn't sort of mission critical that we can get round.
Sure. Now, do you sometimes do recording just on your own?
I do. Since I met Keith, I bought a small setup of my own, mainly to practice, and I record local bands, not in a really professional way, but with professional values. I record rehearsals and things like that, just because I'm generally interested, and basically to archive what bands are doing, because we find that all too often these performances go unnoticed.
Well, now let's go back to the Sheldon Theatre Brass Band and the world premiere. How did you meet the Sheldon Theatre Brass Band?
Well, that's a very interesting question with an even more interesting answer, I suppose. It's what I would call a really happy accident. I acquired an MP3 player, you know, the little things that take cards. I acquired one of those and was struggling for things to put on it. I have CDs of brass bands and other kinds of music because I listen to all sorts of things. And somebody gave me a website address for a podcast. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what a podcast is, it's like a miniature radio program that's put on as an MP3 that you can then download and then listen to whenever you like. And I scrolled through this thing, and I didn't recognise many of the band names, which I think is a good thing, because they weren't all the top line names there. There were bands from Australia, and then this funny looking band called Sheldon Theatre Band. Of course, I scrolled through it, and I suddenly saw a name I really knew well, mine. So I clicked on it, downloaded it, and had a good listen, and was pleasantly surprised that this band thrilled really, that this band had bothered to get my music, record it, and then put it up on a website so that everybody could hear it. But I was particularly impressed by the rest of the little broadcast they'd made, because they were consistently good throughout the whole broadcast, which was great. So I clicked on a link and sort of got in touch with them. Seemed very friendly people at the end of the email. I now know they are very friendly people, having been here. And said thanks very much for writing, for playing my stuff. So I wrote them a little march. And
that just happened to be part of the celebration of Red Wing's 150th anniversary.
Yeah, the second happy accident. I wrote a little march called Red Wing, Minnesota, and the band played it. They tell me they enjoyed it.
Well, indeed, we did. Yes.
So they played it, and it was kind of appropriate for the time. So things kind of moved on, snowballed. I sent them more music. I'm sort of using them almost as a pilot band, where I'm confident enough to sort of send the music to the band and know that it's in very safe hands with the players around the stand. There's a tremendous amount of talent around that stand, and a fantastic musical director, Jim Kirshner, who's he has a kind of real good intuition about certainly what I want out of a score.
Well, and speaking of Jim Kirshner, let's listen to, as we hear the credits, Jim rehearsing the band this last Monday as we played the ending of the March of the Polished Brass.
Great.